Now, we would turn to 54 Wadia Park, where beloved Baba had asked everyone from Nagar district. It's not only Nagar, but throughout the district. And at that time, 54, there were not many cars there, but lots and lots of bullock carts. I think that beloved, that this Wadia Park was the one which had lots of space and could have lots of people coming in from this festival, and they were they were in dozens and dozens in each car, and there were hundreds and hundreds of bullock carts, not cars, but bullock car. That time was our bullock cart days, not the. Anyway, this is how it was. Lots of people had come. Lots of people wanted Baba's darshan. And there was really a chaos. Let me tell you now, in 54, I was a new Baba lover. A new Baba lover. Not having met him also at that time, personally. So, when it came to too much, there were crowds and crowds, and we thought that, Baba was sitting down on a stage, and we thought that, that these people will break down the stage also or something, because everyone started, and it was very difficult. So, most of them, this is the time I tell you that to me, I would say that this was the time when my volunteership came into the thing. I was the volunteer at that time, not volunteer by name or volunteer. It it gave us that kind of a thing. Let's help. The police were not able to do anything, and Dara and other boys from Bombay and all that, we said we will try to help the police or something, and we really had to pull down some of the bamboos from the ground and hold all the people, on one side, and whenever we used to think that the line is line is having uh, and we would just lift up the bamboo, and thousands of people just would go in to have beloved Baba's darshan. That was the time, when Baba, and I'm telling you, at that time, our Nariman would say that Baba is really in very good mood. He is very, very happy that so many of them have come. Yeah. So many of them, And there was a lunchtime, and we were guarding beloved Baba also for his place for the lunch and all that. was a lunch and all that, And as I told you, this was the first time that my volunteership started from there. And where everyone was asking something from Baba, from his lunch, So I was also near Baba. I even asked for something, and Baba gave me something like a upma or something like that. No, I'm sorry, not upma. Uh, yeah, something like that. And that was it. At that time, Baba um and what was the
Gadge Maharaj.
Gadge Maharaj, both of them were sitting each other, sitting together, and there were lots and lots of people are all around them, and we had to see that beloved Baba is not disturbed or anything. But I also, like a human being, just had my hand and Baba gave me something. This was Baba's real prasad. It was this. I ate it with my hands, and this is it is still reminding me of that prasad all the time. Thank you.
Jai Baba. I welcome you all to this 12th edition of annual program of discovering the Avataric treasure or Avataric legacy. It is an attempt to discover the treasure that is not commonly known. This event is being organized by a library committee, especially by Mr. and Mrs. Gokaran Shrivastava since 2010, and is done consistently for the last 12 years. The program presents an opportunity to Baba lovers to share with others their experience of discovering Baba's love. The first program gave an opportunity to volunteers workers at Meherabad to share the information about the work they do here. In the second program, various Baba centers were invited to share the activities they are doing to spread Virat Baba's name. Baba has said, do not propagate my name, spread my name. So all these centers are doing this important work of spreading Virat Baba's name, telling more and more people about Virat Baba. Since 2013, this program is focused on Baba's life and work for a certain period of his Avataric advent. This year's program covers Virat Baba's life and work from 1954 to 1955, 2 years. The most important events of this period are the program called Three Incredible Weeks, when Baba had invited about 20 foreigners from various countries to be at Meherabad with him for about 3 weeks. Then the darshan at Wadia Park, Baba gave public darshan in Ahmednagar at Wadia Park. Final declaration meeting at Meherabad, बाबा ने स्पेशल मीटिंग ली थी जिसमें वो फाइनल डिक्लेरेशन का डिक्लेयर बाबा ने पढ़ा था वहाँ पे उनके डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस में. Then discarding the alphabet board which Baba used to communicate. Darshan at Pandharpur at the invitation of Garge Maharaj. Other darshan programs in India, and finally the 1955 Meherabad Sahwas and also publication of God Speaks. All these important things took place during these 2 years. On 1st February 1954 to 10th February 1954, Baba visited Hamirpur. Second time, in 1953, he had given the first visit, and 54 the second visit. But during this visit, when important thing happened, Baba declaring himself as Avatar. Baba, people used to call him Avatar, Avatar Meherabad. Baba himself never declared himself as Avatar, but he did this at Mahua, at Merastana Mahua in Hamirpur district. Baba was in his program visiting Hamirpur, and suddenly he asked Keshav Nigam that he wanted to go to Merastan, Mahua, Keshav Babu's place where he had his house. It was incidentally it was Baba's birthday as per Zoroastrian calendar also, Pasik. So Baba had a whole night bhajan program there. At little before 12 o'clock, Baba asked people to go and wash their faces and come back refreshed. And then program started again, and suddenly Baba asked Eraj to announce, say, Avatar mein Baba ki jai, Avatar mein Baba ki jai, and Eraj went on calling Avatar mein Baba ki jai. This is the first occasion on which Baba asked himself to be called as Avatar. On 20th February, Baba he went to visit Andhra Pradesh again. Second visit to Andhra, 20th February, 26th February was his Andhra visit. Then during this period, on 1st March, Baba had a meeting at Rajmahindra. And a very important meeting. You see, Baba's four stalwart workers in Andhra, Kutumba Shastri, Dhanpati Rao, Ranga Rao, and Mallikarjuna Rao. They are called KDRA, in short form. They had difference of opinions among themselves about all about Baba's work, how Baba's work should be done. And they could not agree with each other how to proceed. And finally, this dispute came to Baba. At Rajmahindra, Baba had a meeting at night, and the meeting started at 9 o'clock and went on about 2:30 in the morning. But Baba could not bring them together again. So finally, Baba announced that I'm dissolving this KDRM. This KDRM मैं खत्म कर देता हूँ. अभी आप मेरा काम independently करो. Independently you do my work. And at that time, Baba gave a very important message to the workers, how to do Baba's work. This message was also given. Then, on 20th March, Baba visited Sapori at the invitation of Yashwant Rao to inaugurate his new house. Baba had promised Godavari Mai also that he will visit Sapori. But in this visit also, Baba had on many occasions told Godavari Mai that do not allow people to worship you and bow down to you. Godavari Mai used to allow that. And at Sapori, during Baba's visit, again they held Godavari Mai, Sadguru Godavari ki jai. And Baba did not like that. So Baba again reminded her of her promise and again asked her not to accept any homage. Baba says, you should not expect any honor, any homage while working for me. You be a very humble worker and avoid such type of honor being given to you. Again, I would say this was what Baba had said. He said was a spiritual plague at Sapori. Baba did not like to go to Sapori, calling it a spiritual plague. So probably this was also one of the reasons things happening at Sapori. Then in 12th September, Baba had organized a mass darshan at Wadia Park in Ahmednagar. So first public darshan in Ahmednagar, and more than 10,000 people attended. Gadge Maharaj also attended this program, and Godavari Mai also attended. And Baba did, I think food was given to all. There have rows and rows of people being served food on the ground, and Baba himself sat with them and had a little food with them. Then there was a program of 3 incredible weeks from 12th September to 30th September when 20 Westerners participated in this program. They stayed at Meherabad on the hill in the retreat building which is there. And during this program also, Baba had organized their visit to Sakori and Baba wanted to show them Sakori. Every day Baba used to come for this program from Meherabad. Once he took all the Westerners to Meherabad also and took them on the seclusion hill also to show them seclusion hill. So this was also under program. Then there was a main Savas program in Meherabad in September organized. At that time there were no likely chances. Baba asked Pendu to cover all the tents with tin sheets, galvanized iron sheets, thinking that Pendu really thought, why Baba is asking us? But what happened is really on the 29th night, there was heavy downpour rain. If the tents were not covered with the sheets, everything would have got wet. And this Baba wanted always his Savas to be comfortable. So the Savasis, he said, they should be comfortable, they should not be put in the inconvenience. So Baba saw to it, and even the cots were provided for all people to sleep on. Temporary cots were made and sleep on. So this is and during this Savas, Baba made a very important statement about his prayers. How we should participate in the prayer. Baba said, participate in Master's prayer and prayer of repentance with all your heart. God listens to the language of heart and is deaf to the dictates of the mind. So if you put your heart in the confession prayer, that's the repentance prayer, the God will definitely make you love Him. So what is known as virtue and sin are nothing but strength and weaknesses. And on the last day of Savas, Baba took everybody on the Meherabad hill, and where the final declaration was read out in 4 languages: English, Marathi, Hindi and Telugu. After this 3 days of Savas also, when the participants were going back, Baba gave the finished manuscript of God Speaks to Lord Dimple, Sufi who had come from America, for giving it over to Ivy Deuce and Don Stephen for his final publication. So this was also important event of giving the final draft of God Speaks for publication. Another important event was Baba's giving up the alphabet board. At Satara, this happened. Baba had brought there's a small gathering of his close mandali. Baba had brought 3 boards with him. One was plywood, one was plastic, and one was cardboard. The plywood board was presented to Shashgan Kumar, plastic was presented to Dhake, and the third board made of cardboard, which Baba had used over the years. On one corner was little broken where 0 was there. The 0 of the board was partially torn off, but the piece still was hanging. And Baba remarked, I have been using this board quite roughly and still the 0 is suspended to it. Due to the broken piece, 3/4 of the 0 is wiped out. 1/4 is still saved. If this dangling piece is separate from the board, it will be best for the world. Baba then flung the board to Savak Kotwal and the piece did come off. वो जो टुकड़ा था वो निकला आया, तो Baba remarked, only God knows the value of this 0 and what it signifies. Some say Baba said 3/4 of the world will be destroyed, would link to it, Baba's statement. The Baba gave that board to Erash, asking him to send it to Padri for preserving. And that piece which was broken up, he gave to Savak Kotwal and told him that please preserve it carefully. But next day, when Baba asked about Savak about that piece, Savak was little fumbling where he did not know where he had kept it. So Baba realized that Savak will not be able to keep this piece safe. Baba said it's very important piece, and then Baba had that piece also sent to Padri for preserving. Then Baba also went to Pandharpur, paid a visit to Pandharpur at the invitation of Gadge Maharaj, and on the banks of Chandrabhaga river, on the sands, Gadge Maharaj had a big sands heap was made, and on which he made Baba climb Baba there, and Gadge Maharaj was giving his kirtan, and hundreds of people are gathered around, and there Gadge Maharaj declared that the living God, the living Lord Vithoba is here. The Lord Vithoba in the temple is not a living God. This is the living God I have brought him. That he declared Meherabad as the living God there. This was all. This is how very the event of this period take, and the year ended with the three languages of Savas programs at Meherabad. One was Gujarati, 4 to 8 November, Telugu language, 12 to 16 November, Hindi, 20 to 24 November, and Marathi group on 20 to 2nd December. During all these activities, all these 2 years, in spite of all these programs going on, Baba's fast and seclusion programs as usual, and the must work also continued. So this is what was happened in these 2 years. I briefly narrated the important events of these 2 years. There will be more presentations later on by different participants, and who will deal with these events in details. So I hope you will enjoy the program as we enjoyed the earlier 11 programs. And I hope these programs will be continued in future also. Thank you very much. Jai Baba.
12th Annual Legacy Program, Discovering the Avataric Treasure. This is Gokaran Shrivastava introducing the program. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. By beloved Baba's grace, we are able to organize the 12th Annual Legacy Program, aiming to discover the Avataric treasure, which is infinitely stored in his messages and the records of his documented biography, highlighting his life and the Avataric mission accomplished. Besides the documented biography, much more Avataric treasure will continue to be discovered with each passing year, and the Library Committee of the Avatar Meher Baba P.P.C. Trust will be privileged to share this discovered Avataric treasure with ever increasing number of not only his lovers but with other spiritual seekers spread over the whole world. Many elderly people in rural India still nurture a great faith and regard for number 12. It is a commonplace old age rural understanding that if any activity continues for 12 years, then it becomes permanent and leaves an indelible mark on one's center of determination. It is generally explained by an example that if a person is successful in not telling a lie for 12 years without break, then he would never be able to speak a lie even if he is tempted to do so. Similarly, if he leads a truthful life for 12 years continuously, then he would never be able to go off track from the ethical and moral path of life. In the parlance of this rural ideology, the 12th Legacy Program gives us hope that it will be sustained till beloved Baba returns again amidst his lovers of the new crop after 700 years. His lovers of that time would be able to report to him to his new advent the treasures that they have discovered in 700 years from the legacy which he had left behind in the form of Meher Baba. Each fresh avatar gives new meaning to his own teachings and the way of life that he leads before his new advent. The title of this program is Discovering the Avataric Treasure. This naturally leads us to a question mark. When Baba's whole life and work is documented in virtually full details and the literature, films and videos are easily available, then what is left for us to discover? Probably by answering this question, we may justify our approach or effort of discovering the Avataric treasure. The ancient Indians have evolved their religion through revelations which are compiled in Vedas. They hold that the Vedas are without beginning and without end. This concept may sound ludicrous to non-Indians, how a book can be without beginning or end. But in fact, the term Vedas is not applied to any book. The Vedas means the accumulated treasury of spiritual laws discovered by different persons in different times. These laws govern the moral, ethical, and spiritual relations between soul and between individual spirits and the Father of all spirits. The discoveries of the laws was done by people called rishis, who are honored as perfected beings. In some sections of Indian society, there is a belief that the first Veda, the Rig Veda, is based on the revelations of Zoroaster, who was none other than the past advent of Meher Baba himself. The Vedas reveal that the creation is without beginning or end. According to these revelations, creation and the creator are two lines without beginning and without end, running parallel to each other. God is ever active providence, by whose power systems after systems are being evolved out of chaos, made to run for a time and again destroyed. It also says, the sun and the moon, the Lord created like the suns and moons of previous cycles. This Vedic concept agrees with the modern science also. The trust deed formulated and approved by beloved Baba also has a provision for a spiritual training program for his lovers. What would be the agenda for this spiritual training? Naturally, this training program will not be confined only to the reading and learning by heart the documented biography of beloved Baba. It will be taking the lovers beyond the documented life and work of Baba. Every interested person of this program has to discover the hidden treasure in each of the avataric activity of Meher Baba, not only theoretically but ultimately to put oneself on the practical path of moral, ethical, and spiritual life suitable specifically to individual tendencies, resources, and social and personal responsibilities. This program is aiming at accumulating the hidden truths to be discovered by different individuals from the life that Baba led and the avataric mission that he carried out during his physical life. In 12th Annual Avataric Discovery Program, some of the major life activities of Baba are included for presentation. These activities were from Baba's life period between 1954 and 55. Declaration of his avatarhood in Hamirpur, 3 incredible weeks program for Westerners, Wadia Park Darshan, final declaration, discarding the alphabet board, Pandharpur Darshan, Andhra Darshan tour, publication of God Speaks, and Meherabad Sahibas are some topics on which presentations are included. Each of these aspects and activities of beloved Baba's life enclosed within great avataric treasure which the presenters discover during deeper studies. Baba's literature has two main approaches of browsing. When we go through this literature in our comfort zone, then our approach is mostly very casual. We simply enjoy each piece of information, and our mind in such a situation is not inclined to make any deeper analysis, and thus, in this state, we fail to discover any hidden treasure in Baba's revelations. Each of these aspects and activities of beloved Baba's life enclose within great avataric treasure, which the presenters discover during deeper studies. Baba's literature has two main approaches of browsing. When we go through this literature in our comfort zone, then our approach is mostly very casual. We simply enjoy each piece of information, and our mind in such a situation is not inclined to make any deeper analysis, and thus in this state we fail to discover any hidden treasure in Baba's revelations. And the other approach of those scholars who make a deeper study with an analytical mind, as they wish to pass on their deeper understanding to others. It is through this approach that the hidden treasure in Baba's revelations is usually discovered. With passage of time, concurrent with availability of more Baba literature, more and more avataric treasure will be discovered. Not only this, but this discovery will evolve more effective and advanced ways of practical application of Baba's revelations. Some of this program will be seen subscribing to this view. For example, it is generally accepted that in a remote rural area of Hamirpur in February 1954, Baba declared his avatarhood. Much research has surfaced in this direction as to show that even before this event, Baba disclosed his avataric identity many times. Then came the 3 Incredible Weeks program of 1954 with a set of Westerners. Each individual has his own story according to his individual tendencies and spiritual makeup. All biographies of these participants, when available, will disclose lot of hidden avataric treasure before the worldwide family of Baba lovers. Those lovers of beloved Baba who were fortunate enough to enjoy the periodical company of the avatar also represented the great storehouse of avataric treasure. Only some of this is documented, and most of this individual treasure is lost. The films and videos based on Baba's life and work are great treasures in themselves. Every activity of beloved Baba is perfectly timed and has a well-planned sequence. Those who care to delve deep in analyzing this relationship between different avataric events, they will discover valuable treasure to be shared by the future generations. Why Baba gave the message highest of the high before his declaration of his avatarhood? Why the alphabet board was discarded after declaring his avatarhood through the alphabet board? Why Pandharpur Darshan was after declaration of the avatarhood? The relationship between final declaration of 1954 and publication of God Speaks in 1955 and 1955 Sahivas of Meherabad after this, if and when analyzed for deeper understanding, will bring out before his lovers great avataric treasure. Thus, this program opens up an opportunity for worldwide Baba community to collect its share of avataric treasure that the scholars are constantly discovering for us. Once Baba stated that his lovers should exchange their notes between themselves. At present, this annual legacy program is offering only one-way traffic, that is, the presentations are given by some selected scholars and others are subjected to view these presentations as a mute observer only. We don't have any interacting channel at present through which we can put Baba's aforesaid wish into practice. Interacting ventures have their own inherent challenges. Some of us are prone to find fault in the presentations instead of supplementing various presentations with more information. Finding faults mars the whole effort of such programs and dampen the spirit of the presenters, who make these presentations after a thorough study and deeper understanding. The online presentations are still more challenging to make as each presentation requires technical support of some outside expert of the digital world. As far as discovering the Avataric treasure, one of the approaches can be by reading between the lines or by correlating two statements or two Avataric activities. For example, great hidden treasure in God Speaks can be unearthed by focusing on the significance and practical application of the revelations of God Speaks. God Speaks is not only a monumental book of the avatar of this age, but it is one of the most potent medium of doling out an unique divine gift to entire humanity, irrespective of diverse faith, religion, and opinion in which humanity is divided. The infrastructure of creation, its purpose, its origin, its evolution, and periodic end is of equal concern for all the living as well as so-called non-living objects of the entire creation. Before the contents of God Speaks were gradually given out by Meher Baba, such an information of universal appeal and unity was not available in any of his previous advents, at least to public in general, leaving aside only those souls who were prepared during his past advents to receive and absorb such mystical knowledge from the past advents. The knowledge which was revealed only to selected few during the past advents, Meher Baba in the present advent has made this divine knowledge available to entire humanity. But before doing this, he himself in his previous advents prepared the stage for Avatar Meher Baba to gift his theme of creation to the world. In a way, the previous advents themselves have stepwise evolved in the form of Avatar Meher Baba, who descended on the earth when globalization was complete and the geographical and religious barriers were dissolved. God Speaks' main treasure is in its revelation that all souls enter into creation from a source of unmanifest state of God with the purpose of discovering their lasting and real identity, which is the discovery of their own godhood by each individual. The soul may belong to any religion or any faith, but ultimately each soul has to attain his or her I am God state. This is the greatest avataric treasure whose door is open for every soul. In the intervening periods between two advents, the perfect masters run the show of the creation, but they have no authority to make changes in the set pattern of creation. In this aspect also a great avataric treasure can be discovered. Upasni Maharaj, for example, perpetuated the ancient Indian understanding that a human being after death may revert back to any lower form depending upon his or her karma or actions. Avatar Meher Baba set this old misleading and wrong concept right by revealing that once human form is attained by a soul, it will never revert back to any lower form except in case of advanced souls of fourth plane by misusing his divine powers. It is safe to conclude that within passage of time, more and more avataric treasure will be unearthed through deeper study and understanding of messages, life, and activities of Avatar Meher Baba. Also, Meher Baba has opened up another door wide open for such discovery through the lives and activities of his past advents. Many actions and activities of the past advents were much enigmatic, but now Avatar Meher Baba has provided a very convincing explanation for many of misunderstandings or less understood acts of episodes of his own previous advents. To overcome the limitations of one-way traffic of the present style of this program, that is, no interaction between the viewers and the presenters can be done away by the viewers by communicating to us some such treasures which they may discover in some of the aspects of beloved Baba's life and work mentioned here. Relationship between God Speaks, wayfarers and discourses. Change of manifestation dates. Silence breaking postponements. 3/4 destruction of the world. The statement telling his Mandli to remember that he was not this body. Selecting a remote place like Hamirpur to declare his avatarhood. The age of intuition and emergence of new humanity. Some hidden aspects of the 10 circle charts. India being the oldest known spiritually advanced country, still the advanced souls are only identified as rishis and munis or saints. Why there is no way to place them on the advanced planes of spirituality as given in God Speaks? What treasure can be discovered in the term Ancient One? Why in India there are so many perfect masters, Sadgurus and avatars even today? These are some of the aspects in which interested viewers of this program may discover great avataric treasure and to give this program an interactive platform. In this way we can also uphold Baba's wish that his lovers should exchange their notes. Exchanging notes will not be by casting aspersions on any presenter, organization, or on the contents of any program or the style of presentations, etc., but by really discovering some hidden treasure in the messages, teachings, outer actions, revelations, and other activities of Meher Baba. By this way, interested viewers will help enrich this program and contribute in sustaining this program for many more years to come. When beloved Baba manifests in his next advent, our descendants may report to him that how Avatar Meher Baba's teachings and messages were muddled up by the humanity over the years. He will then be prompted to set the wrongs to right in the light of his new advent, which is always the case, that the teachings and messages of the past avatars have to be given a fresh meaning by the latest incarnation of the same ancient one. In conclusion, we can say that the lovers of God, particularly of avatars, cannot live by messages and teachings alone to bring them sense of divine or spiritual fulfillment. His mind seeks to know more and more of himself and of the avatar with whom he gets connected in the contemporary avataric age. His heart yearns to experience the profounder values that can enrich and transfigure his life through the hidden treasure with the teachings and the way of life of the Avatar himself. In the framework of time and space, the one reality as the contemporary Avatar reveals himself variously as per the aspirations of the individual lovers or followers. This program on discovering the Avataric treasure is a means of satisfying the head and the heart so that we, as lovers of the avatar of this age, Avatar Meher Baba, can function from an integral understanding to help save and serve our own inner quest and share it with those who care to be a part of such a discovery. The positive aspect of online program is this, that many viewers all over the world can watch and share in this presentation. But one of the limitations of this program is this, that there is no chance to terminate our obligations. So there is no program for expressing our gratitude to all those who have helped. So first, we are grateful to the Avatar Meher Baba Trust for giving us this opportunity to have this program. And secondly, to all those presentators who have made a deeper and thorough study to discover some of the Avataric treasures and share with us, and all those viewers who would be watching this program. So we are grateful to all of them, and our library committee, which comprises of Dastoor, who is our coordinator. Then we have our library committee members, Urmila Shrivastava, Ruby Duvas and Suzy Imura, who have supported this program and helped us to organize and direct this program under the leadership of Dastoor, who is our coordinator. So we are grateful to all of them, and we are just trying to terminate our obligation to all those who have made this program successful. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Hello, I would like to thank the Library on the Hill Committee for giving me this opportunity to share with you a summary of Meher Baba's work, 1954 to 1955. Here we see Meher Baba in Mahabaleshwar, 1954, and this is being presented by Jeffrey Beadle. In January 1954, Baba was still dictating some of God Speaks, which was started the previous August and was completed the following July. The book was published in March 1955, a historic event for the world, a sacred text supervised by the Divine Beloved. And here we see Meher Baba dictating to Erich, who had a significant role in the writing of God Speaks. Hamirpur. In February 1954, Baba returned to what he had determined to be his heartland, Hamirpur district of Uttar Pradesh in northern India. The Divine Beloved gave this message. God does not listen to the language of the tongue or of the mind, but he responds to the language of the heart. The language of the heart is the song of love for the beloved. When the heart weeps for the beloved's union and the mind suffers the pangs of separation, then the beloved's response is the final embrace into oneness. On the 10th February, Baba held an all-night vigil with a small fire burning 20 minutes to midnight. Baba asked his lovers to wash his face and hands. Then just before 1 a.m., Baba told those present, I feel in an extremely good mood now, and although I still do not find it proper to tell about my next advent after 700 years, as I promised to Kumar, this much I can say today, that one time I will tell about it clearly, but this much I can say in my present good mood, that soon God will make me break my silence, which will mean God manifesting himself, and within a short period, he humiliation and glorification will come, followed by my violent physical death. I will come back again after 700 years. This much I can say now. Turning to Kishore Nigam, he said, "You have no idea what luck is being granted you at this moment." Baba was in very high spirits and spelled out on the alphabet board, Avatar Meherabad Ki Jai. The declaration of the Divine Beloved's avatarhood had been made. And here we see Kishore Nigam. This picture is of Meherabad with his alphabet board. And this picture is Kishore Nigam at Darshan. Andhra Pradesh. Next, Baba went to Andhra, which represented his mind. The Andhra Baba Center was known as KDRM, the initials of the four pillars of Baba's Andhra family, Kutum Shastri, Dhanapati Rao, Ranga Rao, and Malik Rao. Baba was becoming concerned with how Andhra was serving him. He gave this address: "I myself have not understood what work you are doing for me. If you are doing only propaganda, it is absurd. I do not want mere propaganda or any kind of false publicity. Never love and honesty I want. If you all cannot do that, then stop what you call work. I am quite capable of doing my work. Therefore, today I think we must try to stop this so-called work. This is what I think." After much discussion, the Beloved gave the Andhra group this message: "You are all workers of Baba. Those who have money and can afford it can go from place to place telling people about my message of love. Those who have little money can go around their own town and by living a life of love, convert others to love for God. Those who have no money, a large family, and no time should convert their own homes to Baba's love. So from now on, no centers, no office, no accounts. Money should not be asked from people, and Baba's love will be there. Is this not right?" Thus, the Andhra KDRM group was ordered to be dissolved by Baba, as was his custom, to build structures of scaffolding and then remove them. A worker in Andhra told the Divine Beloved that he recognized him as God. Baba replied, "God means all-knowing, all-present, so I'm in everyone and know everything, and it is my fault. Whose else's could it be? I know everything, I am everything, so there is no fault. If I am God, as you say, then it is no one's fault. If I am not God, there is no one in the whole universe except myself who is at fault." Furthermore, Baba made it clear, the heart of every Baba lover is a center. Baba at Darshan in Andhra Pradesh, March 1954. The darshans Baba gave in Andhra were full of fire and passion. He instructed his Mandali, Francis Brabazon, to pay close attention to what was about to happen in Andhra. The outcome of this was Francis's epic poem, Journey with God. Kishore Nigam was also asked by Baba to come to Andhra, where he could attend the darshans without any responsibility of organization or role to play as one of the pillars of a newly formed Meher cosmic family in Hamirpur. Kishore was inspired by the Westerner's sense of discipline. Francis Brabazon formed a special bond with him and would grab him by the collar, regularly shouting, "Wake for the Awakener!" The following December, Baba ordered Francis to return to Australia and write Stay with God. And this picture here is of Meherabad's poet, Francis Brabazon. 3 incredible weeks. The Divine Beloved invited a group of men from the West. 20 men arrived 11th September from the USA, London, Australia, and Switzerland. The next day, Baba had arranged for the only large darshan to be given in Ahmednagar at Wadia Park. A great impression was made for the Westerners. Many had never been to India before and have never seen anything of such love and devotion towards God in human form. Baba at Wadia Park Darshan with the Saint Gaj Maharaj, 12th September 1954. Saroj Sharani read the message from Meher Baba's call. Age after age, amidst the clamor of disruptions, wars, fear, and chaos, rings the Avatar's call. Come all unto me. Although because of the veil of illusion, this call of the Ancient One may appear as a voice in the wilderness, its echo and re-echo nevertheless pervade through time and space to rouse at first a few, and eventually millions from their deep slumber of ignorance. And in the midst of illusion, as the voice behind all voices, it awakens humanity to bear witness to the manifestation of God amidst mankind. Two other key paragraphs. I tell you all with my divine authority that you and I are not we, but one. You unconsciously feel my avatarhood within you. I consciously feel in you what each of you feel. Thus, every one of us is Avatar, in the sense that everyone and everything is everyone and everything, at the same time and for all time. There is nothing but God. He is the only reality, and we all are one in the indivisible oneness of this absolute reality. When the one who had realized God says, I am God, you are God, and we all are one, and also awakens this feeling of oneness in his illusion-bound selves, then the question of the lowly and the great, the poor and the rich, the humble and the modest, and the good and the bad vanishes. Here we see a picture of Sarosh reading Baba's message at the microphone, and then seated to the right of Baba is Erich. And then right below him, looking straight at the camera, is Baba's spiritual mother, Gulmai. Baba's messages were read in Marathi and English. If you were to ask me why I do not speak, I would say I am not silent, and that I speak more eloquently through gestures and the alphabet board. If you were to ask me why I do not talk, I would say mostly for three reasons. Firstly, I feel that through you all, I am talking eternally. Secondly, to relieve the boredom of talking incessantly through your forms, I keep silence in my personal physical form. And thirdly, all talk in itself is idle talk. Lectures, messages, statements, discourses of any kind, spiritual or otherwise, imparted through utterances or writings, is just idle talk when not acted upon or lived up to. And this picture is of Meher Baba giving prasad, and right above him you can see the High Saint Gaj Maharaj with his arms stretched out. After giving out prasad, 20,000 souls were fed. Here we see the Divine Beloved seated amongst the people while they were being served. Baba asked the Western men to put aside all their cares of the world for these 3 weeks and think only of him for half an hour each day. He gave the men some special instructions, such as dressing their souls with him 4 times a day. In the morning when they wake up, at noon, 5 p.m., and before going to bed. This is something that is still being passed on to this day. Baba gave so much of himself to his Western lovers. This period has been documented in the book 3 Incredible Weeks with Meher Baba. However, Baba's work was also very unique and individual for each person. At the same time, the Beloved was turning the tide of his divine love from the one and the many to the many and the one. That is, a message for all humanity for the forthcoming age to come to the one true reality that is of God and for God. And here we see Baba at the tomb with Western men, 24th September 1954. Baba gave a talk on the three types of lovers of God. The first is the must who loves and knows only God. He loses all consciousness of self, of body, and the world. Whether it rains or shines, whether it is winter or summer, it is all the same to him. Only God exists for him. He is dead to himself. The second type of lover is the one who lives in the world, attends to all worldly duties fully, and yet all the time in his heart he knows that this is temporary, that only God exists, and he loves God internally without anyone knowing it. The third type, which is the highest, is very rare. Here the lover surrenders completely to Christ, the Avatar, the God-man. He lives not for himself, but for the Master. This is the highest type of lover. Unless you have such love, merely to criticize and judge others will take you nowhere. Baba introduced Darwin Shaw to Erich as one of his dear ones. This had a profound effect on Darwin, who felt a great wave of love and bliss, which he described in detail. It was beyond my wildest dreams. One could not describe the sweetness, the tender beauty of his love that was radiant within. When Baba called me one of his dearest ones, it just broke me up. I looked at him through tears and asked, "How can you say that?" Baba stated in a sober manner, "I do not humor you." Darwin offered Baba a handkerchief he brought from the West, which seemed a small gift after what he had just received. Baba responded, "You yourself are the greatest gift you could have brought. You are God's gift to me." Darwin had expected to receive strong messages from Baba, but what he experienced was so much more. He elaborated. Something much more important was happening to us on a much deeper level that had nothing to do with these things Baba was explaining to us at this surface level. One could not remain static. Our sense of dimensions of who we are and what we are changed. There was a dissolving process. We were in a realm which was new and wonderful, and it was somehow in the realm of Baba's being. This went on day after day. Baba held a meeting for the men on the 24th September. Upon entering the room, Baba seemed so much like the Christ to Darwin. Jesus' words came to him, "You all say yes, yes, but do not do." Baba looked at him sharply and echoed the same words during the meeting. Baba spelled out to them, "No more explanations today. It is the last day of my coming here. Today we will drink together. This is not the Last Supper, but the last drink. And I am hoping that, at least from among you all, no one will sell me. Although someone has to do that job, my physical end is going to be a violent one. I am the Ancient One, and you will all love me more and more after my body is dropped, and will see me as I really am. Today I won't explain anything. What is there to explain?" And here we see the Western men standing with Baba. Darwin Shaw is second from the right, holding his right wrist, and then right behind Baba to the left, looking straight down at him with his hands clasped, is Francis Brabazon. And what strikes me about this picture is how many of the men have their attention focused on their beloved. Declaration for All, 23rd September. The Avatar held a darshan at Kushru quarters in Ahmednagar. For those who missed the Wadia Park darshan, thousands of people came and the Divine Beloved gave them his love for 3 hours. There were still people in the queue. Baba got on top of Adi's car and waved to the crowd as he was leaving. The theme of the darshan was expressed. Meher Baba's love is for all mankind. Every caste and religion shared in it equally, whether they be rich or poor, literate or illiterate. And this image is from the same time period. Meher Baba giving darshan, and right behind him with the glasses is Ben Haman. And then looking down with his hand stretched out is Adi Kerawala, his personal secretary. The final declaration. In Meherabad, 30th September, a message was read out from Baba in 4 languages, English, Hindi, Marathi, and Telugu. Here are some key points. A strange and serious disease will attack my body. I have not come to establish anything. I have come to put new life into the old. The universe is my ashram, and every heart is my house. But I manifest only in those hearts in which all other than me ceases to live. When my universal religion of love is on the verge of fading into insignificance, I come to breathe life into it and to do away with the farce of dogmas. The present universal confusion and unrest has filled the heart of man with greater lust for power and a greed for wealth and fame. For a man to have a glimpse of lasting happiness, he has first to realize that God, being in all, knows all, that God alone acts and reacts through all. The time has come for the preordained destruction of multiple separateness, which keeps man from experiencing the feeling of unity and brotherhood. This destruction, which will take place very soon, will cause 3/4 of the world to be destroyed. The remaining 1/4 will be brought together to live a life of concord and mutual understanding, thus establishing a feeling of oneness in all fellow beings, leading them toward lasting happiness. And here is Baba on Meherabad Hill, 30th September 1954. While Baba was giving so much personal attention to visitors from the rest of the world, preparing them to spread his message in their own countries, he was getting ready to make a major shift in his work in India. The following is from Baba's last message on the alphabet board. There is no reason at all for any of you to worry. Baba was, Baba is, and Baba will also be eternally existent. Severance of external relations does not mean the termination of internal links. It was only for establishing the internal connection that external contacts had been maintained until now. The time has now come for being bound in the chain of internal connections. Hence, external contact is no longer necessary. It is possible to establish the internal link by obeying Baba's orders. I give you all my blessings for strengthening these internal links. I am always with you, and I am not away from you. I was, am, and will remain eternally with you. And it is for promoting this realization that I have severed external contact. This will enable all persons to realize truth by being bound to each other with internal links. Meher Baba gave special reverence to the 5 perfect masters of the age with a special prayer. And here we see Baba at the center. Directly above him is Hazrat Babajan. And going clockwise down is Sai Baba, Tajuddin Baba, Narayan Maharaj, and Upasni Maharaj. 20 of the Avatar's close ones were present. Baba instructed them to touch his feet, saying the names of his Sadgurus, O Sai Baba, Upasni Maharaj, Babajan, Tajuddin Baba, and Narayan Maharaj. Baba brought 3 alphabet boards. One was made of cardboard. 3/4 of the 0 was torn off. Baba flung the board and the 0 fell off. Baba felt this was significant, and he put the detached zero in Savak Kotwal's care, declaring, "Only God knows the value of this zero and that which it signifies. Keep this most carefully until your last breath." Later, Baba asked Savak what he had done with the zero and was told he put it in his trunk. Baba chastised him for not knowing its significance. Savak ended up giving the zero back to Baba, who gave it to Erich to give to Padri for safekeeping. And here are pictures of Savak Kotwal and Padri. Baba began training his close ones a new language of signing with special gestures and learning how to read his facial expressions. One day he went to the Mandlis bungalow with his hands wrapped in bandages. He began expressing something with just facial expressions. Nobody could understand what it was except for Erich. The significance of this was noted as a miracle, as all the others were dumbfounded. Erich would remain close to the beloved for the remaining years, translating his gestures. Here we see Erich and Baba. To put an end to confusion and worry, a circular was sent out to his lovers clarifying the final declaration given 2 months earlier. Some points were given in the language of the Avatar and others in common language. 1. A strange disease attacking my body, it was said in your language. 2. The humiliation that I will suffer, it was said in your language. 3. The breaking of my silence and uttering the one word of words, it was said in my own language and simultaneously in yours. Because when I utter that word, it will be an audible word to you. 4. My glorification, it was said simultaneously in my language and yours. 5. The destruction of 3/4 of the world, it was said in my own language alone. 6. The dropping of my body, it was said in my own language and simultaneously in yours. Baba met with the poor of Arrangown and asked his close ones to remember him continuously throughout the duration of the program, giving the direction, let thoughts come, but go on repeating God's name. Afterwards, Baba took everyone up the hill in Meherabad to see his final resting place. And here we see Baba washing the feet of the poor in Meherabad, 6 November 1955. Intense Sahavas period. By now, Baba's avatarhood was firmly established in the hearts and minds of many souls. The beloved began a period of intensive sahavas, giving darshan to thousands, beginning in Bombay and Satara in August 1955 until the following December. Then Baba started inviting groups to Meherabad so messages could be given in different languages. Some of the messages were repeated to different groups, but each sahavas had a flavor all its own. The following language groups took the opportunity to be with their beloved: Gujarati in October, Telugu in November, Hindi in November, Marathi in November to December. It took 3 days of intense labor by the Mandali to set up the first Sahavas program. Tents had to be set up and generators were brought in to provide electricity. Pendu was very demanding when it came to details. This would be a role he would continue to play for all the gatherings in Meherabad. Some of the Sahavas were held very close together. The Mandali had little time to break down and prepare the next Sahavas. And here we see Pendu and Baba on Meherabad Hill. Baba explained, the meaning of Sahavas is physical proximity, to meet one another, mingling together like members of the same family. But my staying with you and your staying with me do not mean the same thing. For ages past, Baba is with everyone, but here you all have to be with Baba and forget everything else. The divine beloved declared, to have the consciousness of remembrance at that time, you should begin by remembering me from now on. I am taking my own name continuously. Similarly, you too should take my name constantly every moment. If you cannot do it while living, at least remember to take it at your dying moment. For you, this is the only remedy to free yourselves from all your bindings. Here we see the Avatar with his lovers, November 1954. It was apparent to those close to Baba, each Sahabas took a lot out of him. The beloved suffered greatly, but when he would be in front of his lovers, he was able to appear in bright spirits and full of energy. The 1955 Sahabas were historic. Never before had the Avatar of the Age given so much of himself. Don Stevens came to Meherabad and was asked to compile a book from the Sahabas program. As a result, Listen Humanity was published in 1957. And here is Don Stevens. And this image is of Meher Baba walking up Seclusion Hill with his lovers in Meherabad. And the following are some quotes from Meher Baba given during these Sahabas. Age after age, I say the same thing in different ways. Love is not a thing to be told or expressed to anyone. It is a secret to be kept. Do not shout Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai every time either. What is the use in doing that? Shout within your heart. It must be heard only by you, not by others. The main thing is to gain love and give love. Everything gets merged in love. Meher Baba. And I have some people to thank. Val Kachuri for writing Lord Mayor, U.S. print edition. Lawrence Ryder and David Fenster for editing and compiling a text. Kishore Narayan Nigam, my life story with Avatar Meher Baba. Images courtesy of Avatar Meher Baba Perpetual Public Charitable Trust, and additional images copyright Mir Nazar Publications. It's mnpublications.zenfolio.com, David Fenster's website, and MeherBabaTravels.com, Anthony Zois's website, and to all of Meher Baba's lovers, past, present, and future. Jai Baba, everyone.
And he, despite suffering a major automobile accident and in that visit, he got himself sort of quickly mended up and did all that was possible to get back into physical condition to take a much more strenuous tour of India. And you know, traveling conditions in India can never be compared with any other in the world, I think. So Baba was making himself ready for that. And despite doctors' uh, opinion that Baba should not be straining his leg yet because it had hardly healed, and Baba said, "Come what may, I have to go on this tour. If something happens, bring me back on a stretcher." That is what he actually had said. And if I die, then put me in the crypt, and the instructions that I have left. But come what may, I will just give this darshan that I have planned, and my lovers are waiting for it, and I can never postpone this. So you can imagine how he was just bent upon releasing his love to the world, and he did that in no less a manner, because when he toured all the countryside here, the love that he awakened in the masses was a sight for the gods to see. It was unbelievable, the love that he just splashed all around. And the people were just getting crazy with his love. So that's how he built up this tremendous surge of love for him all over. And he had spread it already in the West, and this was now in India itself. And the whole world was now expecting him to be more available. And so that's when later on this was in 1954 now, that he decided to give a public darshan in Ahmednagar. And for the first time after many years, Ahmednagar had the great good fortune to have his public darshan. And Baba asked all his lovers to spare no effort to let people know that he's giving out this darshan. So it was spread through papers and other media and through the countryside and the neighboring villages. So everyone around was informed that Baba was doing his darshan after a long time. And as we have all seen in films, and all those who were there who participated in that, it was a love feast for a whole day, and Baba just didn't spare himself that day. He gave himself his everything to splash his love among his near and dear ones who had assembled there. And the meeting, the darshan went on and on. There was no sign of any abatement, and people just wanted to flock around him, and more people kept coming. There were hundreds of bullock carts who brought people from all over the villages, surrounding villages, and it was a sight really that is unforgettable. And to top it all, Baba had a 3-week program with the Westerners, which he had called earlier, and he had given them so much. No, I think it was just then that the Westerners were called. That's right. So this was the first day, in fact, of their arrival in India, and they were exposed to this, and it just completely washed them out, as it were. They had never seen any such spectacle. They had never seen such an interplay of love between the lovers and the beloved, and it completely sort of wiped them out, as it were. We got reports from them, their reactions, and especially Darwin Shaw. He writes very well, and he expressed it so beautifully. And so Baba was bringing up this tempo. And actually, while Baba was in Satara earlier in 1954, he gave out for the first time about a few months earlier, I think in June of that year, that he wanted to have a sort of meeting of his lovers. So the circular was being drafted, and that was when the circular was given out, inviting people to attend this meeting that was held 50 years ago to the date. And in the circular itself, the tone of the circular was such that it started quite a sort of what shall I say, a turmoil within people who received it, because he said that in Andhra had given a meeting of the workers. There was a meeting at Rajamandri where Baba had called his workers, and he sat through the night telling them what Baba meant by work for Baba, and how he just lambasted all people who had their own notions of being leaders and wanting to lead people and bringing their self forward, keeping Baba in the background, and that they thought was Baba's work. And in Andhra, it was, they are very organized people, very educated. So they had formed a committee called the KDRM or something, which was controlling all the centers in Andhra Pradesh. And Baba, on that momentous night, he said, I dissolve this committee now. No more. Each heart will be my center. Each one will work for me. I don't want any propaganda. It's absurd to have a propaganda in my name. What I want is people who will live a life that will be the message that I want people to give to the world. I don't want any organizations. I don't want any such formalities and any such things. Let each lover's heart be my center, and so on and so forth. It was a very serious meeting, and so that was the meeting that Baba referred to in this circular, saying that just as I had given a meeting for my workers in Andhra on that day, this meeting that I am calling for now is the first and the last of its kind. It will be a meeting which will give out what my mission in life is in this present incarnation, and and hereafter there will be no further meetings like this. And so this will be the first and last meeting of its kind. And soon after that, I'll be dropping my body. So the first little bombshell he had already put there, and it created a turmoil in people who received it. There were conditions for attendance. It was to be people who were above the age of 16, and only men. No women should be there. So, and whoever loved Baba, whoever was interested in Baba, and who would love Baba, they are welcome to attend. So, with all his love being splashed around, there was a tremendous response to this circular, and about 1,000 people wrote back saying they would attend. So this was in June that the circular went out, I think. So there were quite a few months in between, because the meeting was in September. So Baba had given a time for people to have confirmed their acceptance or otherwise, and to send a dakshina of rupees 20 or 25 or 22 rupees, yeah. Each one had to send that. And when they came, that they would be given a badge which they had to wear. So when actually Baba attended the meeting, he paid that cash on, and he put on a badge. And he came for the first time on the stage and pointed to the badge. He said, I'm the first one who gave this dakshina to myself.
It was called Guru Dakshina.
Guru Dakshina. So we remember wearing those badges and prominently, so that only those could enter the pandal there.
What did Baba say? Did it say Baba?
No, I don't know what. There was something written there, the meeting, reference to the meeting. So that was the preparation for this meeting that Baba inwardly did. But externally, the preparation started in great force when he sent Pendu and Bhau and other close mandli to start work at Meherabad. Because Baba knew very well that there will be a big response and there will be a big crowd, and so proper arrangements should be made. So then Pendu was there, and Baba, as you know, always used to keep a very limited budget in which the mandali had to make all the arrangements for food, lodging, everything. And every penny had to be accounted for and put before Baba. And he would scrutinize the accounts and see that everything was accounted for. So the budget was a shoestring budget, mind you. And it was very difficult for Pendu to manage things. And just when the September month, or I think August, yeah, when July, August, they were given time to prepare, and the rains had started. So it began to rain, and it was an unusually wet monsoon for Ahmednagar that particular year. So what happened is that Pendu was a little scared. He knew that this month of September is the month where Ahmednagar usually gets maximum precipitation uh, in this whole surrounding. They are known as the elephant rains, and that's when Ahmednagar really gets its share of the monsoon. So it was staring Pendu in the face, and with that shoestring budget, he could only manage cloth pandals. So one day, and then Baba came from Satara early on, I think in the beginning of September, with the women and some of the Mandlis stayed at Meherabad, and Baba would pay daily visits to Meherabad to oversee the arrangements. And it would be a big task for the Mandli to do the arrangements and still be attend to Baba also. Yeah. But they did it. And then Pendu came one day and tells Baba, I must have at least a tin covering on where they are going to sleep. And the others said, there's no money, Baba. We can't do it. And everybody was saying, we strike down this. It's because it had opened up in September. Usually early September, the rains sort of clear up, and then the final onslaught comes towards the end of the month. And Pendu knew the pattern. He just insisted, if I am the manager, I'm a miser in that, So he wouldn't allow more funds to be given out. So somehow other things had to be sort of held back, and this was arranged. And really, Baba must have made him do all this, because little did we all know that what was in store. And then the arrangements went on, and I remember I was there as one of the volunteers that were called a little early. So I and Sam, I remember. I think that's what I remember. There may be a Dadi and others, but the only recollection I have is with Sam. Huh? You were not there. Huh? I thought as much because I don't remember Dadi being there. So Sam, why I remember particularly because I was helping Sam to film Baba even in the Bhadia Park Darshan, and the film that came out was so good that I was feeding him information, and I was telling him, get ready for this big meeting and we'll have to work really well to get Baba on film. So that's why I remember Sam was with me. So we were there and the pandals were all ready, and Pendu had arranged for some wooden charpais, which had these coir strings, so very light and very temporary. They can just last for a season or two. And these strings were pulled all across the four posts, and the bed is ready. So it's like a sort of what do you call, like a hammock? Yeah. So these beds were all arranged in long rows, about 1,000 of them, mind you, in a huge pandal. And all sides were just cloth, and on top just this little tin covering was beautiful, spick and span. The newly plowed earth was just a little soft, but it was pressed down a little to accommodate this tent. It was between the road and the railway lines. I remember it was near where the memorial is going to be erected very well in the near future. So the 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 lodging tent was there, and the little down below was the meeting tent. And then for our food and all, we had a tent. We had tents in the lower Meherabad area behind Mandli Hall. So those were the arrangements, and everything was very nice, very beautiful, right up to 28th. And from 28th, the heavens started to open.
Well, Baba got everyone the rain also.
Yeah. So the rain wanted to have the company of the Lord. So I should be left out. So it really confounded. What's going to happen now? They just wanted to pour and pour and pour. Ceaselessly it went on. And
usually Meherabad would be very happy to see that rain.
yeah.
And not
And the funny part was that when the month started, it kept on raining. So the Pendu and Padri had approached Baba and said, Baba, how can we do with all these rains? So he says, come on, start to pray. We took them in Mandli Hall. And Baba, Pendu and Padri stood there and prayed to God to stop the rain. So he actually participated on the first day, and he then said, keep praying like this till the 26th. So every day, Padri and Pendu, who never say any prayers, who never believed in all these ceremonies, so they were praying wholeheartedly, please stop raining, please stop raining. He had formed a little prayer. I don't know the words of it. But that was Baba's humor, So that was going on. 26th, they stopped this prayers as told by Baba. And on 27th, it started, the first few showers started. Just imagine. So no prayers, so the rain again started. I don't know what it was, but he was playing a game with us. Anyway, so that's how on 27th it started, and the rain wouldn't stop, and on 28th it was a total washout. And we just all sat there and couldn't move out of the tent. Everything was just pools of water, or ponds of water all around. And the water was gushing into the tent because there was no protection from the side. And the ground below being plowed recently, it had absorbed all that water, and it became just total slush. So all our beds and all our belongings were there, and we were perched there, a few of us with the whole empty tent in front of us and looking quite desolate and not knowing what is in store for us. Yeah. So he had really started shaking up things, So that's how the meeting commenced. That's how it all started. I'm taking too much time. I don't know whether they'll have time to speak. All right. You say these people are going to make me talk. That's not
Well,
fair.
he was right there. We worked.
All right. I'll try to finish it early.
Tell what Minu Kharas.
Minu Kharas was our boss. He was the boss of the volunteers. So he was commanding us, hey, you two fellows there, come on, let's start doing this, let's start moving the beds. And he would stand there and order us about, he was in the police force. So he had that sort of ordering about, he was a big officer. Huh?
The manner of
Yeah, his manner was all very gruff and rude, and boisterous, and he was ordering us around, and Sam was quite upset about it, I think. I don't know whether Sam remembers that or not. So anyway, but he himself got scared afterwards because no amount of his doing all this had any effect on the rains. So
He couldn't command that.
yeah, so I tried to sort of put bluff and bluster into the whole proceeding, but even he got scared in the end and just became a little timid after that. Anyway, so that was the prelude to all this. But later on, what we learned was that in Meherabad, on the same night, that is about on the 27th, I think, I heard later that Baba was feeling very anxious. So he was calling the Manli to his room and saying, what will happen? My lovers will be coming tomorrow. The rains are not relenting. What will happen? What is going to happen? My lovers will be very upset. So he called Beadle, I think, to pray. But Beadle's prayers, it seems, didn't have much effect. So then he called Kerawala. He says, Kerawala, now pray with all your heart that the rains may stop. Pray to God. So Kerawala went into his room and started fervently praying to God. But no, the rains were just pouring and pouring. And the whole of 28th, it just was a washout. And on 28th afternoon were the people who were to arrive from all the outstations. So 28th by the afternoon, most of the crowds had arrived by trains. So the Ahmednagar platform, which was very small at that time, because now you see it's quite enlarged, but at that time it was not like this. So it was almost a sort of wayside station. And most of the lovers were there out getting poured upon, all their belongings getting sodden and wet. And they were all disconsolate, what's going to happen? And the buses were arranged and the buses were there, but somehow with all this, they were all quite happy that they were going to meet the Lord the next day. So the buses started arriving at Meherabad in pouring rain. They came as wet as mice, how in our Gujarati we say like that. So they were completely drenched, all of them. And despite all our best efforts, nothing could be done. Somehow they got in and in all that slush and tried to just get settled down there. In all this, there was hot water that was being prepared for people to have baths. I don't know who dared to bathe at that time. At least I didn't have any such ideas of bathing on that day because it was a bath anyway. So yeah, and then what happened on 29th, early morning, it stopped to rain. At last, Kekobad's prayers seemed to have effect, and the rain gods listened and they stopped altogether. Not a drop fell after that. So, but the damage was already done, and it was all wet, and it was, yeah. So, Baba came along very early that day, 29th, and I remember he first went to the little cottage, Kelkar's cottage, which is now Ted and Janet used to stay. That was where Baba used to come and first be there. It was a room kept aside for him during these meeting days. So Baba went there, and then he started to go all around and to inspect what has happened. So as soon as he went there to the Mandli hall, there was Pendu totally aghast, and Baba went and sort of embraced him and said, "Don't worry, everything will be all right." And that somehow Pendu was reassured that Baba will now take over, because he had sort of ground Pendu to his last bit of energy to try and make things all right there, but he had just given up the ghost as it were. So Baba comforted him, and then he started to take the rounds. And while he was walking there, we noticed his chappals got stuck in the slush, and they wouldn't come out. So he just left them there, and then somebody picked them up. But he walked barefoot after that, all around, and there he was, all covered with slush right up to here, and his beautiful feet, they were all full of all that slush, and he's walking all on that rough ground barefoot, yeah, and inspecting everything, the food tent, the lodging tents, and all, and the meeting tents, and soon after that, he started to walk towards the meeting tent. Now, in the meeting tent, as I said, it was all total slush and ponds of water all around. So Baba entered the hall, and then what happened, I don't have all the recollection, but it seems that Baba, we were all there because there were no chairs for that day. So we were all standing there because nobody could sit there, it was so wet. So we were all standing, and Baba was taking rounds in that lodging, in that meeting hall. Then he went up to the dais, and we all stood in front of him. And then Baba tells us that you all have come here. This is a meeting that I am taking, and since meeting means to meet people, so I'll be meeting each one of you. Each one will come and embrace me. So meeting means to meet, so let us embrace. And that's how we'll start the program. So that was a good thing. And before the meeting, before greeting people, like embracing people, he wanted to have a prayer done. So, and Baba says, when I pray, nobody should cause any disturbance. Nobody should shout in my name or Jai or anything. Please be very reverential, because I will be praying to God on your behalf. So then he asked Kaikobad, he washed his hands there, Kaikobad washed, and then Baba stood there facing each other, facing Kaikobad and Kaikobad facing Baba on the stage, and they said some prayer which Baba had told him to say. And it was quite a solemn occasion. We all just folded our hands and were witness to that. And just as he finished the prayer, someone in the crowd just spontaneously said, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. And Baba was very taken aback. Who's that? Baba said. Did I say that nobody should disturb? And that fellow was very frightened. So very meekly he put up his hand, it was I, and Baba said, why did you do that? You have disturbed the whole proceedings. Now I will have to repeat the whole thing. So suddenly it was a very sort of somber atmosphere that when Baba gets upset, everybody feels he's upset, and he lets it be known in no uncertain ways. That feeling that comes out of him, it just pervades the whole atmosphere there. So everybody was quite stunned. And then he says, get me some more water, let's start the whole thing again. So all the water was being used up. So he said, Padri, what are you standing? Get me some water. And Padri rushes out and gets some water from the puddle that was lying there. Just imagine, only Padri could think of it. So he takes that puddle in his hands like this, I still remember, and holds it on Baba's hands, and Baba washes with that puddle water his hands. So his feet and his hands both blessed, the water that fell from the heavens. Yeah. We don't know what things he does behind scenes. So he was doing all his own work, but all this was what we witnessed. So yeah, that was how it started. The whole meeting started, and Baba said no films, no photographing while prayers are going on. So myself and Sam had stopped. We had hidden our camera. In any case, we used to hide the cameras because we were quite shy of getting in front of him. So somehow Sam got beautiful images there, but that lodging, that tent film was all just mere silhouettes because the lighting was so poor and we had no experience, and so you see shadow play there when you see that film. Anyway, so that's how it started. Yes, so after the prayers were over, then uh, several other prayers were said, and I think Baba bowed down to the people who said those prayers. Some such ceremony had happened. I don't recollect all the details. But then, after that, Baba said, now we'll meet. We'll start the embracing. And mind you, this will be the last embrace of my physical form with all of you. So embrace me with all your heart. And very soon I'll be dropping my body. When he said that, the whole atmosphere became very sad. There was joy that we have to embrace him, but at the same time he put in this thing. So the joy was the grief that what is this? We are going to lose him soon. And such was the thing, and the embracing started. And he said, when you embrace me with love, don't be too vigorous and don't snap my ribs. So that lightened the mood all over again. So he brought humor, he brought all this, and he was stirring up people all the while. Yeah, I remember it was quite a forceful thing, this meeting was. All this words that we hear about it was not the real thing. He was doing something very, very much more deeper than what is in the reports that we have now. So he was shaking us all up and sort of stirring up things within us. And then we all started to embrace. And Baba said, embrace only on one side. I don't want two-side embraces. So everybody was following meekly and doing that. But you know how Dr. Deshmukh was. I don't think you all know him. So he was the one who must do something. So what he did was, when his turn came, he met Baba, he embraced him, and then suddenly and embraced the other side. And Baba held him by the shoulder and said, you've done it now again. Didn't I tell you that it must be only on one side? Now your embracing is cancelled. So he was upset, and this was the humor also, that it's cancelled now. So now you go back in the queue and come back and embrace me the way I've told you. So he gets a bonus about it. He was quite happy. He didn't mind all that. He didn't felt anything bad about it. He just went back and was there in the line and came back. And when he met Baba again, Baba said, once only now. And then Baba embraced him. So these things were quite impressed, all these little things that Baba did. Anyway, so the embracing over, and then Baba said, after the embracing is over, we'll all take a break and you all have lunch or something. And then he said a few words which I don't recollect. Something about the meeting. The main thing was the next day, and that for this day in the afternoons he kept for interviews. So group interviews of people who had come from Andhra, Hamirpur, uh, Calcutta, Nagpur, and all these places. So all different groups were to be called. So so when lunch was there, Baba was asked everybody to have the lunch and then be around there while he gave the group interviews in the monthly hall that we have there. So those group interviews were going on, and they were being introduced to Baba, all of them. And after the group interviews were over, it was quite almost evening time, and Baba departed. But already the what do you call, the simmerings were going on. That Baba said the last embrace, and everybody was very disconsolate, and people had become quite emotional, and they would come and hug Baba, try to hug and tell him, Baba, don't drop your body, please, we need you. And Baba used to console them and so on. So all this happened and he just left. And then I don't know what happened at Meherabad that day when he must have come back. Meru will tell us something.
I can't tell you anything about that.
No.
I can tell you about the beginning.
All right, so we'll get the juiciest part at the end. Anyway, so then that's the end of the first day. Second day he comes quite early again. And mind you, while this first day was going on, I forgot one incident. There was one fellow who had in his mind something. So when he embraced Baba, he began to weep loudly. And Baba says, what's wrong with you? And he says, Baba, please forgive me. So he says, forgive you for what? And he says, Baba, I had this thought in the last night that here we all as lovers are gathered. We are having all this difficulty. We have nothing, no place to sleep even. And Baba must be comfortably housed there at Meherabad. He must be having a nice sleep there. And when he comes tomorrow, he'll be wearing gum boots and so on, and he'll be brought in a car, and the car will deposit it right where the meeting is. And what about us? Has there any consideration for his lovers?
It was G.S. and Murthy.
No. I don't know, some person, some young kid was there.
Huh?
Mother.
It was Bhushan? No, not Bhushan. Not Bhushan.
I don't know, some guy was. So he began to weep there in front of Baba. And then Baba said, he said that I had all these thoughts, Baba. And he said that we are all splashed in mud and our feet are all mucked up, and they will be protecting his feet and he'll be walking in his gum boots. So when those chappals got stuck, it happened right where he was, this boy. Just see how Baba I don't know how, but it happened like that. That fellow saw what was happening. Baba just got out and walked in the slush, and that simply washed him out. The rains didn't do that much what Baba did with just that gesture. And then he confessed to Baba, Baba, I'm so sorry that I had this horrible thought in me. And Baba says, I forgive you. Don't have such thoughts. And he consoled him. And then that was one incident that was very prominent. Yeah. Next day he came, then of course the meeting started early. I think it was about 8 o'clock or so. And that's when Baba gave out that this is going to be my last meeting. Very soon I'll be dropping my body. And what he said is that soon after this meeting, I'll be giving up my board. Here up to now, I have kept silent. I was not writing anything, but using only the alphabet board. But hereafter, I'll stop even the alphabet board. And that was quite a stunning piece of thing that he said. Without the board, how will he communicate? He says, I'm not going to use any signs either. I'll just be, as it were, withdrawing within myself. And more the people were getting sort of worked up when he was saying all this, So he says, I'll be withdrawing within myself. Hereafter there'll be no further messages, no further discourses. And why? Because the time for my breaking of my silence is very close. and I have to do the work that I've got to do and prepare for breaking my silence. And that's why I want to be totally undisturbed. Hereafter, no one should try to contact me. No one should write to me anything. Even if you write, I will not be hearing anything. So don't make an effort to contact me. This is it. Today is it. Hereafter, no more. No more physical. So, and then he went on to describe. On top of that, he said, I'll be leading a sort of ordinary life, being in Satara with my close ones, and withdrawing more and more to myself. And then in the next course of a few months, I'll be working very, very, very intensely in seclusion. And I may go to any outside place like Pune or anywhere. And at that time, no Mandali will be close by. And suddenly I'll be affected by a very strange disease. So, which nobody will be able to explain. And that will be my humiliation. The disease will be my humiliation. And that will eventually end in my breaking the silence and uttering the word. And when that happens, or soon after that or before that, 3/4 of the world will be destroyed. So there were some reporters around, public. So they were stunned now. 3/4 of the world will be destroyed. This is what Baba gave out as a statement, unqualified statement. 3/4 of the world will be destroyed. So it was quite stunning, and everybody was getting more and more sort of crushed by all these words, And yeah, it was a very somber atmosphere. And Baba said that, when this disease happens and I break my silence, none of my close ones will be near me. I'll be surrounded, as it were, by a very, very anti-group, a hostile group, who will be around me. And when I break my silence, that will be my manifestation. And the glory of it will be felt all over creation. But the surprising part will be that it will not be felt by people who are close to me. And the people who will be close to me will be very will be very hostile to me. A hostile group will be there. And they will then start beating me. And eventually I'll be stabbed. He said that, when he said that, there was a big sort of uproar in the meeting, and everybody couldn't take it anymore. This is the giddy limit. Baba getting stabbed. Could you hear of any such thing? And I don't know, but that's what he said. Yeah. And then to lighten the mood again, he did some very humorous things there and made people forget also all this. And then he said, now let's go up the hill, because on the hill is my samadhi, where my body, when I drop the body, it will have to rest there. Its final resting place is there. So now I'll take you to that place. You follow me up the hill, and then you bow down to that place there. The crypt, yeah. So we started to walk along him, and as you know, there were stragglers. Baba was walking with a brisk pace despite his first accident. His pace was just remarkable. And he climbed up the hill as if he was just going down a slope or something. And some young people ran after him, but older people were struggling behind. So very close to the top of the hill, I think it would be 2/3 of the way up the hill, there was a small neem tree, I remember. He just, not right up. It was a little way little down below the top. about almost to the top. Yeah, I can't recognize that tree any longer, but it was a very slender tree. And Baba just went and sat there on the floor, just like that, and leaning on the tree, and wanting to wait for those stragglers to come up. And we all sat around him, and Sam and I were getting him on the film quickly, taking all these beautiful pictures, and I don't know what came out, and that it's all on film, some of it.
Now the Westerners were part of it?
Yeah, Westerners were very
Never mentioned that.
They were part of it. 3 weeks before that, he gave the savas to the Westerners. I don't know, I didn't mention that one. And in the savas that he gave them, he just gave himself to them without any limit, as it were. And they were really, really confounded by the love that he was giving them and the savas. And the culmination of it was he was constantly telling them that keep well, don't fall ill. There's a very important meeting at the end of these weeks. So all of you must be very, very physically fit to attend. And any slightest indisposition, report to the doctors. So the doctors were Nilu and Donkin and all were there. So they were attending on him, on the Westerners, yeah. And so the Westerners were there, and they were also all very worked up.
Very affected.
Very affected, I tell you. You could read their accounts later on.
Bill the page, tell where is Bill the page?
Yeah, Bill was
Where are
there.
you, Bill?
He's hiding somewhere.
He's the one.
So yeah, it was quite an intense thing. And then Baba was there. He led up to the samadhi, and then he didn't go into the samadhi, but there was a platform just on the side of the samadhi.
On the east side.
On the east side, yeah, where Mani's shrine is now, and the other. And it was a long platform, almost just a few feet away. It fell short of the cabin, and on the north edge of it were a row of small tin cabins. Huh?
Small meditation.
Yeah, small meditation cells.
Just enough for one person.
But I don't know how one could sit also there. It was so small. Yeah, it was just about this wide, and about 5 or 6 in a row. Five in a row. Yeah, and then that was the background, and Baba was pacing up and down that platform, and we were all.
Beautiful pipal tree there.
Where?
Pipal tree. Yeah, there was.
There was? I don't recollect. Anyway, so then on the platform he was there, and only the Westerners. All the other people, the rest of us were all around and milling all around, because they now all wanted to be as close to Baba as possible. Now this is the last chance to be with him.
Jai Baba, everybody. The few things that I remember about the Savas and the meeting that took place. One of them, I remember that it rained very heavily on one such occasion. Something very unique for an area like Ahmednagar. And it rained so heavily that the whole area near Meherabad turned into slush. And whilst walking someplace, I went quite deep into that slush. My basic nature being what it is, that I exaggerate things, I soon spread the talk that I had gone knee deep into the mud, not realizing that eventually this matter would even reach the ears of my beloved. After the program was over and everything was over, beloved Baba came to our ancestral home, Ahmednagar, in our family home, and I was there. And his glance fell on me and he said to me, "I hear that you were knee deep in the mud." And I smiled and said, "No, beloved Baba, as usual I had exaggerated the thing. I was only ankle deep." And I still remember that smile and a twinkle on his eyes. And he made a gesture like that and to say, "You shit, you will always remain insane." Another thing I remember is that when beloved Baba would give a message, it would be given in English first. by our brother Airaj. Then it would be translated into Marathi, I think by Shridhar, then in Hindi, then in Telugu. The Telugu portion was being translated by one Kutum Shastri. And I was observing that after Brother Airaj had spoken, the Hindi, the Marathi and the Gujarati translations were done in a very short manner. Few words would suffice. When it came to the turn of Kutum Shastri, he would be talking for quite some time, and as we sailors would say, he was yapping away to glory. And suddenly a thought came to, beloved Baba was relaxing on his divan and nodding his head like that. And a thought came to my mind, I'm sure my beloved has not gone to college and studied Telugu. Does he understand what this man is talking? Or is he just merely politely nodding his head? Why come he is taking so long to translate a few words? Even as I thought like that, beloved Baba snapped his fingers. Our attention was drawn to him. Kutum Shastri looked at him and Baba said to him, do not use this word in the translation that you did, but you use this other word. That would clarify the meaning of the sentence more deeply. And I said to myself, you bloody fool, God does not require to go to college to study Telugu. Another very humorous incident of my beloved that I remember is that in India, the afternoon 3:30 time is always the tea time. And beloved Baba was set on a stage. And I was leaning against a wooden pole that was holding the samya. And the Qawwali program was going and the singer was sitting there. And my position, fortunately, intentionally or unintentionally, was such that I was exactly midway between my beloved and the singers. And the singer was singing a Qawwali song in Urdu. Incidentally, Urdu happens to be a very beautiful language. And I personally have a feeling that in order to praise the beloved, there is no language to equal the Urdu language. Anyway, that is not the point. The singer was singing all the time and repeating one particular line. If you cannot quench my thirst, do not declare yourself to be ocean-hearted. And he kept on repeating this line, and I was interested because I knew, with all due respects to my beloved, Infinite One, he was very miserly in distributing that particular wine. So I was wondering what the reaction of God will be to that. And he is snapping his fingers and telling the Qawwaliwala, proceed further. But he kept on repeating that line. If you cannot quench my thirst, do not declare yourself to be ocean-hearted. The Infinite One can arrange anything and everything exactly to his own liking. Exactly at that precise moment, the man serving the tea reached the singer. And beloved Baba snapped his fingers. Attention was again drawn to the Infinite One. And he says to the man serving the tea, 2 cups. He is very thirsty. The whole audience burst out laughing. And the matter ended there. These are, the way I look on my beloved, it is like a diamond, a scintillating diamond that shines from any and every angle. And he has many a time said that if you genuinely call out for help, if you genuinely think of me and remember me, I promise you with my divine authority that I will help you. Originally I was from Pune, and before that I was a merchant marine. And in '96 I moved over from Pune to stay permanently at Meherabad. And in the early years, there were many occasions when I would go into the very depth of depressions. The basic thought that would always come to me is, well, I gave up my stay in Pune, now I'm staying in the very darbar of my beloved. But surprisingly to me, I'm exactly what I am, a lump of dog shit. How come this is happening? Nothing has improved, nothing has changed in me. Well, I was in that state of, on the lower level of feeling. And as usual, we all went to Meherabad on those appointed days. And in those days, Meherabad was open from morning till about 4 in the evening, when we would all return back. And because my my concern about this, my weakness is my frailties. I can describe it very beautifully by the line of one Shakil Badayoni. आज मेरी नाकाम जिंदगी पे मुझे रोना आया, आज मेरी नाकाम जिंदगी पे मुझे रोना आया. And that is exactly what I used to feel. My entire life totally wasted, nothing at all. And that thought of being a sheer waste has brought tear to my eye. Anyway, that is not the point. Our sister Mani, beloved Baba's sister Mani, would give a talk. Then after she would finish off, then Brother Erich would take over. And on that particular day, Mani gave a discourse. And I felt in my heart that in his own beautiful, unique manner, my beloved had answered my question. And Mani said to us all present there, that Meher Baba is an infinitely powerful locomotive, and we are all various carriages. Some carriage carries gold, some carries silver, some carries grain, some carries this, that, and whatnot. And there is a carriage that carries shit, the exact word that I use for myself. Some carriage carries shit. But till such time that all these carriages remain attached to the locomotive, one fine day he will take us to the goal. And in my heart of heart, I thank my beloved for that. This feeling of worthlessness has continued, and I'm very happy to say that it is like that. Because among the Sufis, it is always considered that one should always think of himself as nothing. A man had come to Junaid by the name of Shibli, and Junaid put him through very difficult discipline. And after 5 years of this extreme difficult discipline, Junaid asked Shibli one day, "What have you learned from this 5 years of discipline that I put you through?" And Shibli bowed before his master and he said to him, that in the entire creation of my beloved, if there be one thing which is the very least value, Master, that man is standing before you. And Junaid said, from now on, your progress is assured. So this was another thought that would bother me. And recently, thanks to one friend of mine, I came across a teaching again given to us by none other than our beloved Baba's sister Mani. And this is what she has taught us. I ask from you strength to carry out your work. Instead, you give me weakness so that I can depend entirely upon you. And this reminded me of the beautiful words of John Milton. Thousands await my bidding feet. Thousands await my bidding feet. They also serve who but stand and wait. And another thing that has always upheld me are the beautiful words of another great Sufi master, Manderi. If empty-handed I enter your audience hall, then nothing else but my nothingness could I offer at your lotus feet. If empty-handed I enter your audience hall, then nothing less than my nothingness could I offer at your lotus feet. Not only fruits of austerity are cash here, absolute poverty too has purchasing power in your audience hall. And this is my divine beloved, for whom all the doors are always kept open, whether he be a saint or a sinner. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I'm honored to have this opportunity for a presentation on this occasion of the 100th anniversary of the inauguration of Meher Baba's Avataric Advent. This is widely held to have been marked by Meher Baba's visit to Socorro in January 1922 with a group of disciples, on which occasion Upasani Maharaj declared him to be the avatar of the age. Baba separated from Upasani at that juncture and began his avataric work. This is actually going to be the first of two interrelated talks. The second is going to be aired during the Legacy program in February, both of which are going to deal with major topics in Meher Baba's philosophy, or darshana, the word I prefer to use, culminating in the publication of God Speaks. So this isn't directly related to the 1922 event, but it is related to Meher Baba's avataric message to the world. The topic of today's presentation is entitled The History of the Divine Theme and Its Use in God Speaks. Now, the divine theme is what I would characterize as Avatar Meher Baba's very signature philosophical idea. And by this, I don't mean necessarily the most important, although it could be, but the idea that Meher Baba really put forward for humanity to understand. It is visually represented very well in this chart, which you can see in this slide from God Speaks, a chart drawn by Rano Gailey. And this depicts the journey of the soul from, as the laser pointer shows, from the origination in the beyond state of God through creation, the evolution of consciousness through the seven kingdoms, reincarnation in human form, involution through the planes of consciousness, culminating in the realization of God. The divine theme can be characterized, as this slide says, as the biography of the soul. Biography, as you know, is a story of a life. So the story being told here is not a particular incarnation, but the very life of the Jivatma itself. So the slide reads, the divine theme relates the the story of the soul's journey from its original emergence as a drop soul, or Jivatma, at the moment of creation, through the evolution of consciousness, reincarnation, and involution, culminating in the realization of God. Since each of us is in reality the soul, or Atma, the divine theme is, for each of us, our own personal narrative. In this teaching, the Avatar has given us, for the first time in human history, a full account of who we are, where we came from, and what our destiny will be. Meher Baba's gifting of this understanding to humanity was a truly momentous act, I feel, in the history of humanity and its understanding of the truth. I'll be reviewing the origination of this idea in Meher Baba's discoursing, and some of the major landmarks along this road include the following. Infinite intelligence, as this slide shows, dictated by Baba in 1926, gives us the first presentation of the divine theme that I've ever been able to find in Baba's teaching. Creation and its causes in 1927 to 28 gives another rendering of it. The message is a monthly magazine called the Meher Message. We have another presentation, 1929, a series of articles present this idea with some significant new additions. In 1934, Baba prepared materials for what was intended to be a Hollywood film, and the subject of the film was precisely to be the divine theme. That's another big landmark in this story of the development of the divine theme. In 1941, the Meher Baba Journal, another monthly magazine, which Meher Baba's disciples were publishing under his direction, published a series of 8 discourses on meditation. And in the fourth of them, Baba gave a reading meditation. It's the only thing of the kind that we have from him. It remains relevant and usable today. And the subject was precisely the divine theme. In 1943, Meher Baba held a sabhavas right here at Meherabad, where 125 of his Indian disciples came for 3 or 4 days, and the culmination of it was a group meditation on a chart representing the divine theme. The grand culmination of all of this came in 1955, as you can see on this slide, with God Speaks, which is the classic and definitive treatment of the divine theme. But I do think we have to bring into the story also Francis Brabazon's Stay with God, which is a book that Baba said was second only to God Speaks. It is comprised of 5 books, and the third book is Francis's poetic rendering of the divine theme. It's something extremely beautiful. And the last thing I would want to mention is the 4 journeys. The divine theme tells the story of the soul's journey, but there's more to be talked about than this. That is, what happens after the soul becomes one with God. You have different kinds of God-realized persons. The divine theme doesn't tell this narrative, but the 4 journeys does. You can find it in God Speaks. In 1962 at the East-West Gathering, Baba gave a discourse on this very subject. So these are some of the major stages in the emergence, development, expression of the divine theme narrative. Now, when Baba was talking to the Meher Ashram boys in 1927-28 up on Meherabad Hill, he gave them an explanation that I think is very relevant to the work that a avatar or Sadguru does in identifying a core theme suited to his particular work. Baba here will be talking about a Sadguru. He hadn't really explained the difference between Sadgurus and avatars, so you can really take Sadguru here to mean avatar. So let me read some of this. Suppose that Shri, that's what people called Baba at that time, a Sadguru, descends to the world plane to turn from worldliness those who have little or perhaps no connection with him from the past, such as members of his own circle do. Okay, so he's talking about work for the world at large, not just for those in his intimate contact, his intimate disciples. Now, setting aside the matter of his own circle members, who is a matter of course he will make God realized as he himself is, how is he to turn the faces of the masses and millions in the world in the direction of God and the spiritual path? And exactly when will he do this? To bring this to accomplishment, Shri, or this is Baba, or a Sadguru, or an avatar, will begin by marking the certain points and factors in the environment, namely the time, place, mentality of the people, their inclinations and bent of mind, and so forth. And after making careful note of these conditions, he will think of some easiest and best way, and will decide upon a particular doctrine, some keynote, with which to guide the people, and he will proceed to preach the same. In short, this preaching of a particular doctrine at a particular time before a particular mass of people requires beforehand a close study and observation of the time, place, circumstances, mentality of the masses, and so forth, as we have said. Every prophet has done this, and each has highlighted his own particular doctrine as he deemed best in view of the time, people, and circumstances. And then Baba starts to mention Mohammed and others who did this. So we will find in the teachings of the different avatars differences between them. But this is because the time and place required a different kind of articulation to suit the needs of humanity then. So I take it that the divine theme is indeed the understanding that humanity needs most at this time. Baba's work entailed the drawing together of the different religions like beads on one string. This mastery and servitude symbol, which will be familiar to many of you, illustrates this. And much more could be said on this point, but I'm just going to say in brief that the divine theme really provides an excellent framework on basis of which to interrelate the different understandings of the world. And I'll begin by making this distinction between the great Abrahamic religions, dominantly the religions of the West, and some of the great religions of India in particular. Now, there is a distinction between monotheism and Advaita. The monotheism of the Abrahamic religions posits the existence of a single personal transcendent God who is distinct from and non-identical with his creatures. That is to say, Islam, Christianity, Judaism all believe that God is one. They're very insistent on that. They utterly reject a multiplicity of gods, but also assert that God is separate from his creatures. Advaita, or non-dualism, asserts a supreme underlying reality with which all other apparently existing things are ultimately one. In Advaita, all distinction between empirical individuals of all kinds and God is apparent but not real. That is to say, my real true self is God. Atman is Brahman. Atma is Paramatma. Okay, so this is a very clear difference between the Abrahamic religions and certain dominant strains in Indian religion. The divine theme is in fact non-dual. It says that the soul is one with God, and it also posits reincarnation or rebirth of the soul. So this will be a major change for the Abrahamic religions, all of which assert that you're born once and die once, and then go to heaven or hell. However, within these Abrahamic traditions, really, I would say all three of them, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they have deepened their understanding in many ways, and one of them is through the assimilation of what I would call a Neoplatonism. I won't go too much into this, but the view that everything emanates from God, it's all derived from God in a great chain of being, and creatures, the order of creatures within the universe represents a return to God. An individual doesn't do this in their view, but that ordered sequence of a movement from the lowest to the highest is evident in the great chain of being. Now, this is very clearly relatable to the idea of the divine theme. In many strains of Hinduism, I'm speaking in generality because there are so many different branches and sects and so forth, but most schools of Hinduism, and particularly Advaita Vedanta, recognize reincarnation as a reality. And the goal of reincarnation is the soul's ultimate reunion with God, where it has the experience of I am God. Aham Brahmasmi is the Sanskrit phrase from the Barhad Aranyaka Upanishad. What I find not expressed clearly in the Hindu formulations that I've been able to find is a clear account of the soul's journey from the very beginning to the very end, how it originates, the evolution of consciousness, reincarnation, etc., which Baba has given. And there's a third contributor to this story, which I feel Baba's divine theme has brought into the compass of its vision, and that actually would be modern science, which has developed the idea of evolution. Now, scientific evolution is purely materialistic. It does not acknowledge a soul and does not acknowledge that consciousness drives it, which Meher Baba most emphatically asserts. But it does develop the idea of a sequence of different forms emerging, and well, Meher Baba would certainly say the human form is the highest of them. And this is a dynamic conception of reality, which I think science adds to the story. So Meher Baba's divine theme has, in its way, taken all of this into its purview and provided a magnificent framework by which humanity can understand reality in terms that suit the modern vision of things, and that I think can ultimately bring the religions together like beads on one string. The phrase, the divine theme, did not come into use by Meher Baba from the beginning. At first, he would sometimes use evolution for the whole thing, and in the 1930s, he would talk about the descending track and the transverse track and the ascending track and so forth. In the 1940s, he began to use this phrase in 1941, 1943. So now I'm going to start going over, very much in brief, some of these moments that I adverted to earlier. I've done whole 4, 5, 6 day presentations on this topic, so this is very much an abbreviated account of this. The earliest expression of the divine theme that I have been able to find in Meher Baba's teachings is in Infinite Intelligence. This was published in 2005 as a edited version of discourses that Baba appears to have dictated to the Mandali in the early months of 1926, probably March to June or so. It never got published at that time, but it's a major work. The published book is hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's comparable to God Speaks in that way. And although the phrase divine theme is not used, the idea is unmistakably there. And these are the different stages in the divine theme narrative. It's a narrative, it's a storyline, okay? It's the biography of the soul. It begins with creation, the creation moment where the individualized drop soul emerges out of God beyond. So creation is the first, where the creation comes into existence and the individualization of the soul happens. The next stage is the evolution of form and consciousness, both of those. In the beginning, the soul wants to know God as the individualized soul, asks the question, who am I? In order to answer, it's actually such a beautiful, simple idea that Baba has given. In order to answer this question, the soul has to become conscious, right? It can't know who I am if it's not conscious. So the whole first stage of the divine theme narrative, through the evolution through millions of forms, is in the soul's pursuit of consciousness. It acquires more and more consciousness a bit at a time through identification with a vast series of forms. Actually, in Infinite Intelligence, we learn it's 8,400,000 species, which are many more individualized forms. And what the soul does is, through identification with a form, the Jivatma, the drop soul, has experiences, and by taking those experiences, it gathers what Baba calls sanskaras, impressions of those experiences. Impressions is the English word he used for that, which it accrues to itself in its mental body. And by gathering more and more sanskaras, the soul accumulates more and more consciousness. So by going through millions and millions of forms, it gets more and more and more and more and more sanskaras and more consciousness. It has every kind of experience. It could be a predator and a prey. It could be vegetative forms and fish forms that experience the water and bird forms that experience the air and so forth. Everything imaginable. At the end of this process, the soul is completely wide awake and conscious. That is human form. And Baba says that evolution ends with the achievement of human form. But now the soul has a vast mass of these sanskaras, which it has accumulated through evolution. And it has completely forgotten why it undertook this whole journey in the first place. It just experiences itself as a creature. Basically, your first human form, you'd be kind of much like a monkey, actually, wanting things that monkeys want. Now you get involved in the long cycle of reincarnation, and the law of karma, as such, comes into play here. This goes on for millions and millions of lifetimes. So this is the third stage in the divine theme: creation, evolution, reincarnation. Eventually, the soul starts to get sick of it all and become dissatisfied with the impermanence of always going between opposites. Happy, miserable, rich, poor, strong, weak, healthy, sick, etc., 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 and starts to look for something more real. And this culminates in the entrance into the spiritual path, the involutionary path. And there are two spheres of the involutionary path, the subtle sphere and the mental sphere. And eventually it comes to the highest, most limit of the mental sphere on the sixth plane of consciousness. There are 6 planes of consciousness distributed through these two spheres, where it sees God face to face. The third eye opens, which the point in the gross body corresponding to it is right here, and sees God face to face. And by the grace of a perfect one, the soul then has the I am God experience. The question is answered. God asked, "Who am I?" and it finds the answer, "I am God." And God realization follows. So that's the divine theme narrative. And as I say, we find that in infinite intelligence. Here's a chart that shows it. There are many, many charts, and it's a fascinating book. We could go into it in great depth, but just to do it very briefly, what infinite intelligence brings out, and I'll have to explain this further idea because it will come up later, is a distinction or interrelation between the conscious soul and the nothing universe. The universe or the creation is non-existent. It's nothing. And the terms which infinite intelligence uses for this are the thinking, which is the consciousness or the soul, and the imagination, which is the imaginary nothing, which we take to be real. So that's what this chart shows, actually. Up here in the blue circle on top, this is infinite intelligence, which is the term God Speaks uses for God, in its original unconscious beyond state, or beyond state. In the beginning, God was not conscious. That's why the divine theme happened. Then it progresses, you can see on this line, through a whole series of forms: stone, metal, vegetable, animal, to human. These are major kingdoms or major stages in the journey. And in each of these, what this line means, going this way, is that the soul experiences the imaginary universe which it takes to be real. The universe is a medium for us, for the Sivatmas, to have experiences in, to spend our sanskaras and acquire new ones. So at the end of this, and this point here, the soul, the Jivatma, acquires full infinite thinking, is the term infinite intelligence uses in human form. And then it goes on to experience, you can see here, these are the planes of consciousness. Having done so, it becomes conscious of itself. That's what this purple circle is. This is the I am God state. And those few souls who continue from there return to an experience of the entirety of the universe. You see this blue line. The Sadguru experiences God, the planes, and the gross and subtle universes also, experiences everything. So what this chart is showing is the narrative of the divine theme. Of course, this chart is very much worth studying very closely. So in 1927-28, Baba gave a whole series of talks to the boys of the Meher Ashram. These are some images of the original manuscript. And this book is being prepared for publication right now. It'll probably come out in February of this year, we hope, next year, 2022. And I won't go into it because there's so much there. But I will say that Baba gave an explanation to these boys up on Meherabad Hill that is basically organized around this same narrative. Now, another major, in 1929, this magazine, the Meher Message, commenced publication, and it had a series of articles in 1929. It's a monthly magazine that used a lot of this material from Baba's talks to the Meher Ashram boys. But it also introduced a new element that Baba hadn't really explained before. I explained it when I was talking earlier, but it really wasn't an infinite intelligence or the talks to the boys. That is, Baba explained that creation began out of the who am I question. This is the first time that idea is clearly explained. God asked, who am I? And he also explains how as soon as this question is asked, God as the individualized soul gets a shock. And the creation comes out of that shock. God speaks, expands on this very greatly. In fact, God Speaks explains that the shock comes about because the first experience that the soul has is of being infinitely finite and infinitely limited, which is completely contrary to the nature of the soul as infinitely great and infinitely unlimited. And the shock of the contrariety produces the force that leads to the entire journey. Okay, now in 1934, Baba prepared notes with his mandali for what he envisioned as a Hollywood feature film that was going to be entitled How It All Happened. And Baba did a lot of work to try to get it to happen. He paid a visit to Hollywood and met with Hollywood directors and did a lot of work with his disciples in India. It didn't wind up happening at that time. But the point that's especially worth noting is that it is the same story. In other words, this divine theme was the central idea Baba was envisioning disseminating to humanity through all these different media. This particular chart, which Baba brought with him, is in fact a chart representation of the divine theme. This is very big, it's about 5 feet tall. And in the top part, you can see on the left-hand side down here, this is evolution. One side has the evolution of form, and the other side has the evolution of consciousness through various kingdoms of evolution. Everything comes out of what he calls the projection point, or the Om point, which would be the creation point. This is the descending track, as Baba called it at that time. Here is the transverse track, which is reincarnation, as you get reborn time and again in human form under the law of... I'm not moving the slide, no. I'm just keeping it. This is the transverse track, which is reincarnation as the soul in human form gets reborn time after time. And up on the right-hand side here, you have the ascending track, which is the involution of consciousness. So as you can see, the whole film was to tell this story. Baba envisioned evolution being shown through trick photography and special effects. But when it gets to human form, Baba tells the story of three souls, X, Y, and Z, through 5 different incarnations. It would be wonderful to go into this in depth, which we don't have time for here. But it shows the movement from opposite to opposite. In the first lifetime, a cannibal, X, murders another cannibal, Y. And in the next lifetime, Y, who has become a Turkish sultan, murders X. So you see the interplay of opposites, which culminates in the last lifetime with the achievement of God realization by one of them, and the other two is this perfect master's disciple. Beautiful story. So that's what Baba wanted shown to the world in the form of a film. Now, jumping to the 1940s, Baba gave as a reading meditation what you see here, published as a pamphlet actually, Srimad Baba on meditation. In his 8 discourses on meditation, the 4th of them has an extended reading, 8 or 10 pages, and Baba offers this to posterity as a meditation that people can do on their own. He has a whole process where you read it every day, and at a certain point you can review it mentally and so forth. He explains how this can be done. And the subject, once again, is the story of the journey of the soul, the divine theme. It's probably the most best written of all the short presentations of the divine theme to be found anywhere. And it starts to be called that now. This was published in the Discourses, Meher Baba's Discourses, in 1941. 2 years later, in this book, here's if you see this slide, this is showing this discourse on meditation in one of the editions of Discourses available now. In 1943, Baba had a gathering here at Meherabad, to which he brought 125 of his close followers from India. This was a hard time to have a gathering at Meherabad. It was wartime. And the highlight of it was a group meditation on this chart, which you can see here. This is, in fact, a chart representation of the divine theme. As you can see in the title page, divine theme was the title of this. Baba had this whole group meditate on this chart as his feature, as the highlight event of the whole thing. If we had time, we could go over this chart in detail. I hope you'll see that these charts are very rich, and all of their details are highly meaningful. You can spend we could spend an hour just on this one chart itself. The next great moment is, in fact, the publication of God Speaks, which I'll come back to at the end. But I'll just say here it was published in 1955, and it's the master treatment of this subject. But to carry this story through to its end, I want to mention this book, Stay with God. Book 3 of Stay with God, as you can see in this slide, is God's Speaking, and it's a very beautiful, wonderful, poetic rendering of it by Francis Brabazon. Baba said this book gives life to God Speaks and is second in importance only to God Speaks. And Francis uses a musical form, theme and variation, where he goes through the divine theme 4 times, developing it differently each time. So that was the last major treatment of the divine theme. So now to come back to God Speaks, you can see this is a chart showing it, as I mentioned earlier. And a number of the other charts in God Speaks depict the divine theme also. For example, this one, chart 4. Down the left-hand side here, you can see evolution and the 7 kingdoms of evolution: stones and metals, vegetation, worms, fishes, birds, animals, man. At man, you pass through the reincarnationary cycle, and then you have involution, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth plane. Seventh plane is the realization of the I am God state. So this chart is, in fact, a representation of the divine theme. I just want to alert people to that. Many of Baba's charts in many of his books are ways of illustrating the divine theme. This chart is also, I won't take the time to go over it here, this chart, the 10 states of God, is also a representation of the divine theme, as I'll be coming to. And the clearest of all of them is this one, which we looked at earlier. And now I want to briefly conclude with describing how God Speaks uses the divine theme, how it's organized around it. Here is the table of contents in God Speaks. It has 10 chapters which are called parts. The first is kind of a laying out of basic frameworks and terms, and the conclusion is a one-page, I would call it a palinode, is the rhetorical term. So the divine theme occupies parts 2 through 9, and in my understanding, it does so in this way. God Speaks progresses through the narrative of the divine theme 3 times specifically. The first time, I call them the 3 passes. The first pass occurs between parts 2 and part 7. You can see that this runs from, 65, 70 pages, from page 8 to page 67. The second pass through the divine theme happens all in one chapter, that is part 8, but it's very long, as it begins on page 75 and runs to page 157 or so. And the third pass through the divine theme happens in the chapter, The 10 States of God, which I personally regard as the most important single statement of Meher Baba's darshana, or of his philosophy. And it goes, people often say that God Speaks is very repetitive, and yes, it is, but these 3 repetitions are very different from each other in this way. The first pass presents the divine theme in a fairly direct and straightforward way. I'm oversimplifying here somewhat, but the initial urge tells about the whim of God. Chapters 2 and 3 review the process of moving through the kingdoms of evolution and the acquiring of sanskaras. Chapter 4, part 4, talks about reincarnation and the balancing of sanskaras. Part 5 reviews the 6 planes. And parts 6 and 7 tell the story of involution, the journey through the planes, 2 more times in quite different ways. I won't go into that. It's a very interesting part of God Speaks, but it's like we have little epicycles where involution is described 3 times in different ways there. That's the first pass. And it's fairly close up and more literalistic. To use this metaphor, let's suppose you're making a movie, a film, and the camera is focused around a certain character, and you have shots from above or below, and sometimes maybe from 50 feet, sometimes close up. Sometimes the camera will show you things the character doesn't see, but it's always in relation to the life that the character is living, right? So this first pass is telling us the story of the individualized soul in terms that are very more directly relatable to the life and journey of that soul. That's the first pass. The second pass in part 8, the beyond state of God, the first urge, and the cycle of evolution and involution of consciousness, does tells the story in a very different way. It's not so focused on, doesn't bring up the individual Jivatma so much, but it's focusing on vast cosmic principles as the landscape in which this journey occurs. I always think of, and I'm showing you some pictures here of Chinese landscape painting as a metaphor for this. You see here these beautiful landscapes. You see these little people down here? They're little teeny, teeny, tiny. Although you're very aware of them when you get to know these kinds of paintings. Here's another one. You see the huge landscape, and here are these little teeny people down there. Who are actually very much the focus. Here's another one. You see the little people down there? So this is what the second pass is like. It's not focusing on the individualized experience in literal terms so much, but the great principles governing it. And these are some of the great principles that he talks about. He begins with the whim, another very detailed discussion of the whim and the Om point. He proceeds to talk about one of his great trinities, knowledge, power, and bliss. This trinity has a big role in Meherabad's darshana. It's the foundation of the mental, subtle, and gross spheres and the mental, subtle, and gross bodies. And also, it turns out, the three paths of Gyan, Karma, and Bhakti Yoga, although this doesn't come up in God Speaks. He then goes on to talk about God as creator, preserver, and destroyer, which, to simplify, is the basis for time. He talks about the three states of sound sleep, dream, and wakefulness. The entire journey of the soul can be described as a journey from God unconscious to God fully conscious of the false, to God fully conscious of his unconscious state in God realization. So these three terms can be used as a characterization for the entire divine theme. When Baba starts getting to involution, he actually just repeats from an earlier chapter talking about the planes. But then he describes the journey with a lot of reference to the Sufi terms of fana and baka, that is, annihilation and abiding in. In the latter part of this chapter, Baba starts talking about the different kinds of advanced souls, musts and saliks, the spiritual hierarchy of 7,000 souls, and the different God-realized ones, Majubs, Jivan Muktas, perfect masters. And the chapter culminates in discussion of the avatar. So you see, this time he's bringing in all kinds of further esoteric spiritual information in his account of the divine theme. Now, the third pass through the divine theme is based on this chart, the 10 states of God. And here, Baba does, I consider to be a brilliant stroke intellectually. He takes the divine theme narrative out of time and represents it as eternal states that are always there. But you can see the divine theme narrative in it. Right here, it begins in God and the beyond state. The Jivatma starts its journey here. Here you have evolution of consciousness through the 7 kingdoms culminating in human form. This is human form here at the bottom, at the point of greatest distance from God. Even though the soul is fully conscious, it is separated by all sanskaras. This is the involution of consciousness, the gross, subtle, and mental spheres, and it culminates in the realization of God here in the 8th state of God. Actually, this chart takes us beyond the limits of the divine theme into the 4 journeys, as I discussed earlier. After God realization, there are a few who go to the divine junction and become Paramhansas or Jivan Muktas, and there are a few more who become Sadgurus in the 10th state of God. So this is the third pass through the divine theme. In this way, then, God Speaks is a culmination of the great subject matter, the great revelation given, as best I know, for the first time to humanity by the Avatar of the age, for its illumination and understanding of God and creation. So there's a very in brief presentation of the history of the divine theme and its relation to God Speaks. Jai Baba.